What if you could create a 5-figure income stream per month through short-term rentals and you never own any property? Well, my man Mike is here to give us the Airbnb blueprint on how to do just that. Stand by. Let's get it.
Flip man, it's the flip man. You want some money in your hand? Flipping houses without credit or your cash. Get that bag.
The Flip Man, and today, bring you another way to make money as a real estate investor. Mainly, obviously, we talk about wholesaling, but that's not the only way to make money in real estate. That's one of the great things about it, is that there's basically limitless. So today I have my man Mike here, and we're going to talk about and educate myself and hopefully you all about Airbnb and how he got started, what he did before then, and so on. So enough of me running my mouth. How's it going, Mike?
Pretty good. Happy New Year.
Same to you, my man. Same to you. What I like to always do is just start out. Just if you'll just give us a little bit about your background, and then you can gravitate or go into how you got involved into Airbnb and those different things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little context. I actually used to be a robotics engineer. And so I love numbers, love analysis, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, actually. So I actually read the 4-Hour Work Week in 2011 when I was still in college, and that completely changed my life. I realized from that point forward, I always wanted to build some kind of business that would give me passive income. So throughout the years, I've been always trying to build businesses, and to be honest, I failed at quite a few businesses, and we can kind of get into some of that a little later on. But yeah, that's quick context. I used to be an engineer, always been passionate about entrepreneurship. And that's how I kind of fell into this whole Airbnb thing.
Okay. All right. So robotics engineer, it's hard for me to even say that. So I can't even wrap my mind around whether you would even start with that. But I guess first thing is being pretty smart. But so let's get into you're working your 9 to 5, and how did you get involved in Airbnb? Did you stumble onto it, or what's the backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe like a lot of your subscribers can.
Let's do this first. Let's explain what it is first, because I'm assuming everybody knows what it is. Yeah,
absolutely. So Airbnb is a platform. It's kind of like Uber, but for houses, right? Like you can take a home and put it on this platform, and it's like a home sharing experience. So people can come, they go on the app, and they can come into your house. They basically rent out your house or a property for a couple of days, and you get paid while they're there. So it's kind of like you're creating a little hotel out of a property, either it's your home, someone else's home. So that's kind of how it works. The cool thing about Airbnb is that they manage pretty much 98% of the heavy lifting for you. So they take care of the marketing. They take care of getting all the people to the traffic. They take care of managing the calendar, the customer support, payment processing, right? So they do all the heavy lifting for us. It's just the cool part is, if you have a property, or if you can find a property and put it on Airbnb, then now you can have this revenue stream of people coming in, staying in that mini hotel, if you will. And it's a great way to monetize and make some passive income.
Okay. All right. So let's get into how you got involved. How did you discover it, or want to even start to pursue that type of investment opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I was a engineer stuck in kind of a 9 to 5, and I was always trying different business models, and maybe some of your subscribers can relate to this. Maybe they tried e-commerce, or maybe they've been just trying different real estate ideas, or whatever it may be. But I was trying Amazon FBA. I tried stock trading for several years. I even tried licensing some technology from NASA. It was called electron beam freeform fabrication. So some fancy technology didn't work out, but basically I tried it all. Okay. And just failed, honestly, at everything. But, I was learning as I went. But nothing really stuck for me. Nothing really took off. And Airbnb was one of those, kind of another attempts that I made to get a business to work. And if you want, I can kind of go into basically how I kind of stumbled into that specifically.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So again, after I kind of tried all those different business models, I felt a little defeated, but one day I was talking to one of my friends. We were actually having like some sushi. I'm a sushi fan, man. So we were at lunch, and basically he was just telling me about Airbnb. He was saying, hey, he has a friend. His friend's name was John. He's like, look, my friend John is he has a 4-bedroom house, and he just lives in one of the bedrooms, but he rents out the 3 other bedrooms on Airbnb. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I didn't really know what Airbnb was at the time. And then he said, the cool thing is that John makes $2,000 per month per bedroom. So then I'm like, hold on. I quickly did the math. I'm like, wait, $2,000 times 3 spare bedrooms, that's $6,000 per month that John was making on Airbnb. And I was like, hold on, how is this even possible? And then my friend went to explain that John had automated everything. So he had cleaners coming in, basically taking care of the rooms and stuff. So John really didn't have to do anything. He was like making $6,000 pretty much passively. So at that moment, it kind of clicked in my head. I'm like, man, I got to learn whatever the heck this Airbnb thing is. I got to dive into it. I got to learn it. And maybe this is like the ticket that I've been looking for, the ticket to that financial freedom, that passive income that I've been looking for, that 4-hour work week lifestyle. So that's when I kind of dove into the research and just started learning everything I could.
Okay. All right. So from what little I know about it, and obviously I've seen, I think I actually paid for a course. I listened to most of it. I don't think I listened to all of it, but you can obviously purchase the property, and it's a property that you own, or it could be, I don't know how their requirements are, or you maybe can lease a property then sublease. So I don't know. So how did you go about it as far as your first actual property and that process itself? Yeah,
absolutely. So at this point, let's kind of picking up chronologically, I went home from that lunch with my friend, and I started doing all the research I could. And I was going to just model the same strategy that John was doing. So he had bought a property and he was renting out the spare bedroom. So I figured I would do the same thing. So I started meeting with mortgage brokers. I started meeting with a real estate agent. I went through that whole process. I got pre-approved. And after everything was said and done, I finally found a property that I wanted to purchase. But it was going to cost me $31,000 to purchase it and, redo the electric and pay all the taxes and fees and everything. And I was just like, man, that's a lot of money. I don't know if this is a good investment. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? Before I make this investment, I got to really understand how much I can actually make on Airbnb, right? So I understand the cost, but how much is the actual revenue going to be? So that's when I kind of went into like engineering mode and research mode. And I basically just spent a month or so reading all the books I could, reading all the articles I could. And eventually I found out that you can actually, I call it like using a revenue x-ray tool. You can actually see which units or which types of properties in any location are going to make the most money on Airbnb. And you can actually see, how much each listing is making on Airbnb. So once I was able to do that and I was able to see, okay, I knew exactly how much revenue I could make using these different tools that I found and kind of putting it together in my own little formula, I was able to, what I call, have a treasure map. And with that treasure map, I was able to see, okay, exactly which properties were going to make me the most money on Airbnb. And I knew month by month how much revenue I would be making. So I had like very accurate information about, how much I would actually make on Airbnb. So once I saw that, I'm like, okay, look, I know that I can make X number of dollars on Airbnb. And I see if I buy a property, I'm going to recoup that investment. But now that since I had such accurate information from a monthly perspective on the revenue, I kind of had this like idea. I'm like, why do I even have to buy the property? Doesn't it just make more sense for me to go and rent out a property? And that's kind of like when I had kind of like a breakthrough idea. I'm like, if I know I'm going to make X and the cost of rent is maybe a third of X, then why don't I just rent the properties? This way I don't have to be $31,000 in debt. I don't have to go through all this whole process of buying home. I can basically be profitable from the very first month that I get started. So that was kind of like my epiphany moment. And I'll kind of continue with the story from there. But if you have any other questions about that process.
No, yeah, I was about to say, so by doing the research and knowing I like to say the exit strategy is that, well, how much money am I going to make?
Right.
So you figured out a way using the tools available to see what particular areas would bring. Then now you can figure out, hey, do I need to actually purchase a property? How much I mean? Then I guess the light bulb went off. Hey, no, I don't have to actually purchase the property. I can just rent. And if I know I can rent a property for, just using some easy numbers here, for $1,000 a month, but I can I could generate $3,000 in income. That's a $2,000 difference. That's a no-brainer versus me actually purchasing the property. It may take me 7 years to get my money back or whatever. So, but yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're kind of tracking with me. That's exactly what I was thinking. So from that point forward, my goal was to find out like what type of property is going to be the most profitable. So this is where I basically what I call and what I teach is finding the patterns of profitability. And what that means is there are going to be some not just locations, but types of properties that do much more on Airbnb. So what I started doing was I started looking at all the top properties in my area. And I started looking at like what were the patterns between those top properties. And some kind of like big patterns were, for some reason, the top properties in the area that I was all had a spiral staircase. So I knew, okay, whatever Airbnb that I want to rent out, or whatever I should say property that I want to rent, I want to make sure it has that architectural feature. But little things too, like I noticed all the top properties had certain towels like rolled up on the edge of the bed. Maybe they had a throw blanket, like these little tiny decor details. I'm like, that's super easy to replicate. I just got to make sure I copy what's already, working. So my whole strategy was about finding what's working and just doing the same thing, right? You want to model success. So after I did that analysis, I eventually had like this model, I call it the golden rental. It's like a model of the ideal property. And I knew exactly what type of rental I was looking for. So then I ran the numbers, and it turned out I could rent this type of property and make $6,800 in revenue each month with that property. And it was going to cost me $2,600 in rent to rent out a property that I was looking at. And obviously, like I was kind of going for a little bit higher tier. It was I think it was a 2-bedroom, but you can start a lot lower too. I mean, I just wanted to kind of maximize the profit there. So I had identified the rental that I wanted, and I actually started going and talking to landlords, and I got a landlord to say, to agree to the idea of what I wanted to do. And I remember signing the lease and thinking like, man, what am I doing? This is crazy. Like at that point, it was all theory. You know what I mean? Like this is just an idea on paper. I didn't have really much to kind of back it up. So I was super nervous at first. But I remember making that decision. It came down to one of those moments where I was like, look, if I don't take action on, the life that I want to have, if I keep kind of postponing or keep kind of being stuck in paralysis analysis, not actually having the courage to take action, then my life's never going to change. I'm always going to be kind of stuck where I am. So when I kind of made that realization, I was like, okay, you know what? Regardless of what happens, I have to do this. This is a business model I see makes perfect sense, and this is something that I have to do. So eventually I signed that lease, and I got the keys.
About the lease, well, there's a question I guess. Airbnb don't as a entity, they don't care if you own it, or does it matter what market you're in, that it matters that you don't own it and that you're subleasing. That you're leasing it out, I guess, or subbing it out. So if you could explain that part, and then the actual contract itself, obviously you had to have some provisions in there that would allow you to do the short-term rentals. I think that's the proper term.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you could explain that part with Airbnb and then the actual agreement itself.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're going to actually lease a property, the main thing that matters is that you just add an addendum. So it's really simple. You just take the lease that they give you and you just put a couple pages onto that lease. It's actually just a couple paragraphs. And that addendum says that, you're going to be doing short-term rentals and that the landlord agrees to that. We put in there a couple clauses about being able to change the locks, because what we do is we use electronic locks or digital locks. This way, the guests can come in and out. You don't have to be there. You never have to greet a guest. Everything is automated. So it's really just as simple as adding a couple pages of addendum. And we also cross out the subletting clause. So we just literally cross it out and put our initials on there, and the landlord puts their initials. And this way there's no, kind of worry on that front.
I got you. All right. As far as Airbnb and them being okay with it, is that market by market? Because some cities, I guess, could have some ordinances in place to prevent that. So what is your understanding about that part of it?
Yeah, in terms of Airbnb, you can put really any property on Airbnb. They're not the ones that are going to be restricting you. It's really more the landlord that would. So yeah, in terms of Airbnb, that's super simple. You just take pictures of the property and put it up. There's no real restrictions on that front. Again, it's more the landlord that you want to make sure is on board about the whole idea. In terms of the cities, the main thing with the cities, just most cities, I think it's 80% of the cities, it's 100% allowed. 10% of the cities, you just need a permit. And then the other 10%, or I think it's actually the last 5%. It's just they restricted. That's places like Miami, New York, Los Angeles, Vegas, San Francisco, basically the big cities. And what I tell my students to do is all you need to do is just simply look, 10 minutes outside the city. There's simply kind of like an ordinance, as you said, or certain zoning locations. All you got to do is find out where it's allowed. But again, for most people, that's not even a problem. It's really only if you're in a really big city like that. Simply look a little bit outside the city and you can find a perfect spot to do Airbnb.
Okay. All right. So you got this landlord to agree to what you wanted to do. And so now it's time to start making the money. So if you can go into that part of it on that first deal and your first tenant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Experience.
Okay. So yeah, I just signed the lease. And at this point, I'm super nervous and I'm like, man, what did I just do? But I was also had that courage to just start taking action. So what I did is, I got pictures of the property. I hired a professional photographer because I saw that all the top properties had really nice pictures. So I knew I wanted to do that. It was $150 to get the photographer, and the pictures looked amazing. The property looked amazing. I put the towels just like I saw, in the picture. I made it look exactly like the other things. So that was the big key. From the very beginning, I had, made it look just like the other top grossing property. So I was, again, modeling success every step of the way. And I remember the night that I put my first Airbnb up, I think it was 10 o'clock at night, and I had the listing done. I had all the pictures done. I was about to click publish listing on Airbnb. So everything was done, just one more click and it would be live, right? And I'm sitting there staring at the screen. The room is dark. It's glaring on my face. The screen is glaring. And I'm sweating. I finally click publish listing. And, suddenly, of course, nothing happens, right? It just went live. But I took this big sigh of relief. Man, I finally did this. I closed my laptop. I go and take a shower. And I remember I got out of the shower and I heard this weird noise. And I checked my phone and it was a notification I'd never seen before. And it was 10:13 p.m. And I looked and the notification said Airbnb booking. I opened it up and it said $1,223. And in that moment, my life changed. Completely changed. Because I had just proven to myself, this actually works. This idea I had actually worked. And Ty, it's crazy because the next day, my phone did not stop dinging with booking after booking after booking. And I remember I was driving down the freeway and I saw a booking, $532, $1,072, another $800 booking just kept coming and it was crazy. I almost crashed because I was looking at my phone so much. But, and yeah, man. And within that first 13 days, I had booked out $18,872.
Oh,
So it was just like proof of concept, for me, it was like, wow, this actually worked, and it was the best feeling to just get that first booking and then to see them come in. And yeah, man, that's how it got started.
Oh, wow. Okay. I know what the title of this video is going to be. All right. So we got this one property and you're only paying $2,600. So in the first basically 2 weeks, you generated 18 big ones in revenue. So sounds like a profit around 15,000 possibly just in that 14 days. All right. So now what happens after that to acquire or pick up another property? If you want to take us through that timeline, and then we'll and before we go any further, guys, there's going to be an opportunity to learn all of this stuff from Michael. He's going to teach you what he knows about the business and how he made money. That first deal is enough for me. But if you could just go ahead into what happens next after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just to kind of break it down a little bit more, that first month, the total collected revenue was 8,500, I believe it was. And the total expense, one thing I want to add in here, just to be transparent, there's also the utility cost, right? So it was $2,600 in rent, and then the utilities ended up being like an extra $200-300. But the revenue was around, again, 8,500. So I profited around $5,000 that first month. Okay. So it was a lot better than, being in debt, $31,000, having to buy a property, Yeah,
and let's be clear on that. When you said the 18,000, because they may have booked 2 months from
Exactly.
It doesn't mean they booked it like everybody's going to come in, boom, 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 boom.
Exactly.
They booked for in the future or whatever.
Right. So it was 2.5 months of my calendar got booked out. So the next month, the second month, I made $6,849. And that was very close to my projection, which was $6,800, if you remember. Mm-hmm. So it was cool to see, either I was hitting my projection or above it. And then the next month, let me back up. The profit on that next month was around $4,000. And then the third month, I made around 8,800. So the profit again was around 5,000 or a little bit more than that. So yeah, so those are the total numbers for that first 3 months. The cool part was that I had a meeting with my boss at my job. I was still working at my job at the time. Around that 3-month mark, I had a meeting with him, and I was supposed to get promoted. So it was like I had been working at my job as an engineer for 2 years, and at that 2-year mark, you have a meeting, and ideally you get promoted to the next level engineer. And I had this meeting with him, and like I showed him all the things I was doing and how at my job and how I was exceeding his expectations. But he's like, you know what, Mike, I'm sorry, but we took some budget cuts. Like, I can't give you the promotion. Like it's just not in the cards for right now. And at that moment, I was like, all right, well, it's been great working here. And I quit right then and there, man. So, and I was able to do that because, don't get me wrong, I love my job that I was working at, but I had the freedom and the options to do so,
And I'm going to assume as a robotics engineer, you were making pretty good money.
Fortunately, yes, it was good money. But the freedom that I got from Airbnb was just more valuable.
Yeah. Your time.
Yeah. But yeah, for sure. But then fast forward, so I realized, okay, this is definitely working. I'm going to get more properties. So I kind of just rinsed and repeated the process and got better and better as I did it, and kind of refined the process a little bit. And eventually I got to some properties that, and I'll throw, or in the training I'll show you guys, there will be screenshots. You can actually see what those properties look like and things like that. But we started renting out a property for $3,200. So a little bit more expensive. And after utilities was around like 34, 35. But on some months we were making in revenue $11,000 or $12,000. So with just one property, I mean, some months we're making like 8,000 in profit, 9,000 in profit, which is kind of crazy to think about with just one additional Airbnb. So imagine when you get 2 or 3 Airbnbs and you're using this process to find the most profitable ones, it starts to add up really quick. So I think the height of some of our revenue was around 26,000 a month, something along those lines. And it's cool now. I got students that send me messages, and one of my students, Nolan, he messaged me the other day, and he sent me a screenshot of just one of his listings that he did $31,000 with in 1 month.
Oh, wow.
And this is like, granted, this is a big listing. I think it's a 6-bedroom home or something.
Okay.
But I'm just like blown away. You know, my students are taking what I'm teaching and they're taking it to a whole nother level in some cases. And it's pretty cool to watch.
Oh yeah. Most definitely, man. Wow. As I mentioned, guys, I wanted to bring Mike on to discuss this because, number one, I'm highly interested and I feel fortunate because I'm directly connected. But you all also can gain access to his knowledge. He has a actual, I guess it can piggyback off of my free masterclass, a masterclass you can see here on the screen, how you can access it at flipmasterclass.com/BNB. So, and if you can explain, Mike, what they'll actually be getting in that free masterclass.
Yeah, absolutely. So in those trainings, I go into detail about how to find that most profitable property. You're actually going to see, like, over the shoulder, watch me do it live, see my screen and everything. So that's definitely check that out. You're going to, the process that we talked about, building that treasure map strategy, finding that golden rental. I go into detail in that training. I think it's like an hour long. And there's actually 2 parts to that training. So the second piece is going to be about how you actually set up the listing. So, how you set up the description, how you get it so that people click onto your Airbnb and buy it, basically how to get the highest revenue that you can. So definitely check those out. I go into a lot of detail, and I think everybody will get a lot of value out of that.
All right, boom. So again, guys, flipmasterclass.com, BNB, /BNB. That's flipmasterclass.com/BNB. Now, guys, one of the things about Mike, the way he set up his Airbnb system is that he tried to automate it as much as possible. If you'll go ahead and share some of that with us, Mike, and some of the things they'll be learning in the free training also about.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the 4-hour work week was my inspiration for finding a business model in the first place and kind of replacing my salary and becoming financially free. So I knew from the very beginning, I had to figure out a way to make Airbnb more like an automated system, more like a passive income stream. So I did a couple things to achieve that with Airbnb. One of which is, obviously, as I alluded to earlier, we're going to use digital locks. And with digital locks, that allows us we never have to be there when a guest is checking in or checking out. Basically, they come in and they actually have digital locks now that sync up with Airbnb. So a new lock code will be generated for every single guest automatically. It's all systematized. So that's super cool. You never actually have to be there to greet a guest or anything like that. Secondly is, you get a cleaning crew. So you have a cleaning crew. They come in and they clean up after the guests, after every single turnover. And they also care for the property in any way that's necessary. So they're kind of like your feet on the ground people. And lastly, I automated my messages. So we use some software, automate the messages, coordinate everything with the cleaners automatically. So there's definitely a system to make sure that, you only have to work on this business about an hour a week. And that's totally realistic. Eventually, once I got it automated, I was able to kind of travel and do the things I've always wanted to do. I remember last year I was in Hawaii, kind of taking a month, just traveling around while my Airbnb business, was just running on its own for me. So that's the thing I love about this business is that once you get it set up, you can automate it and you get this reoccurring monthly cash flow that comes in, that you don't have to keep working so hard, right? It's just kind of like this nice kind of steady stream of income that constantly comes in, and you really only have to put in an hour or 2 a week to manage it. Of course, when you want to go and get another property, you're going to put some time in to actually get that new one set up. But then again, now you just have this recurring income. So that's the biggest thing. That's the thing I really love about this business.
Anything else, man, you want to share before we check out?
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing I wanted to talk about, and that's actually how to do this without signing a lease. So this way it's kind of like no expenses. And I won't get into too much detail here, but just to kind of give you guys some more food for thought. After I've been doing this for a while, I realized, there might be other people who have properties that want me to manage their properties. So what I did is I started looking for real estate investors that might be interested in something like this. So I actually went to a meetup. Maybe you guys are familiar with like meetup.com. And this was, just towards the beginning of when I started doing this, but I had this idea. I'm like, what if I meet some real estate investors? So I went to Meetup, put in real estate investing in meetup.com. And I showed up at this meetup and there was like maybe 4 or 5 people there. And I was like, oh man, this is gonna be such a waste of my time. And I hand my card out to these 4 or 5 people. We chat for a little while and I leave and I thought nothing of it. But about 3 weeks later, one of those real estate investors calls me up. He's like, hey, Mike, I remember you talking to me about this whole Airbnb thing. I have a property. In fact, I actually have multiple properties. I want to see, let's discuss if you want to be managing one of them. And then we'll go from there. So I showed up at the property. We had a little discussion and he was happy to start working with me. So we started managing his property. And the cool thing about that was that I didn't have to pay any rent. So this was just pure profit. I get a percentage of the revenue in this case. So this is a little bit of a different structure and basically the same process in terms of how to set up the Airbnb, how to automate the Airbnb, because that's a big piece of this, obviously, automating the entire process. But that's a cool way to do it too. You can just kind of do a revenue share with the landlord. And then if you find a real estate investor, they might have multiple properties. And now you have multiple units that you're managing and getting, again, no expenses to you. It's just pure profit. You're getting a percentage of that revenue.
Guys, if you want to access this free training, go to flipmasterclass.com/BNB. So again, Mike, we really appreciate you, man, sharing your information. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you in the future. As I always say, guys, thanks, and we will see you on the flip side.
Take care, guys.
Flip man, it's the flip man. You want some money in your hand? Flipping houses without credit or your cash. Get that bag.